So here's something that should have everyone paying attention. The European Central Bank, the people who control the euro, they just said blockchain-based securities can now be used as central bank collateral. And Ripple, they just launched a Treasury platform that settles cross-border payments in 3 to 5 seconds. Not days, seconds. Meanwhile, the XRP ledger quietly crossed $2 billion in tokenized assets. Yeah, the institutional takeover is here, and most people are completely missing it. All right, let's talk about what Ripple just did with their billion-dollar G Treasury acquisition. This isn't just another crypto company buying a software firm. This is Ripple going directly after the Fortune 500 CFO market with something that actually solves real problems. Okay, so here's the deal. Ripple acquired G Treasury for $1 billion back in October 2025, right? And now they've launched Ripple Treasury. And honestly, this is the kind of product that makes traditional treasury teams actually pay attention. So what does it actually do? Well, think about this. If you're a corporate treasurer at, say, American Airlines or Volvo, yeah, these are actual G Treasury customers, by the way. You've got money sitting in bank accounts earning basically nothing after 5 p.m. and on weekends. You've got cross-border payments that take 3 to 5 days, creating massive FX exposure. And you're probably running spreadsheets to reconcile your crypto holdings with your traditional cash. Sounds fun, right? Ripple Treasury fixes all of this. Cross-border payments, 3 to 5 seconds using their RLUSD stablecoin. That's not a typo, seconds, not days. They're compressing FX risk from days down to seconds. But here's where it gets really interesting. Through Hidden Road, which Ripple acquired for $1.25 billion, corporate treasurers can now put their idle cash into overnight repo markets. You deposit cash or RLUSD, Hidden Road gives you interest plus collateral backed by treasuries, and they lend to hedge funds and banks. It's basically unlocking the multi-trillion-dollar repo market for corporate finance teams who've never had access before. And get this, G Treasury processes $12.5 trillion in payment volume annually. That's not a small operation. That's a massive pipeline of institutional capital that can now flow through blockchain rails. Now let's shift gears to something that flew under the radar this week. The XRP ledger just crossed a massive milestone, and the growth trajectory here is actually insane when you look at the numbers. All right, so switching topics here, and this one's pretty wild. So you might have seen headlines about XRPL hitting 1 billion in tokenized assets, right? Well, a Ripple team member actually corrected that. The real number? It's already over $2 billion. Yeah, the tokenized RWA volume basically doubled in December alone. Let that sink in for a second. So what's actually on the ledger? Let's break it down. You've got RLUSD sitting at around 338 million on XRPL specifically, but across all chains, it's at 1.4 billion market cap, making it the 10th largest stablecoin in the world. You've got 150 million plus in tokenized US Treasury debt, private credit at nearly 300 million, and the total stablecoin market cap on XRPL is pushing 400 million with over 34,000 holders. But here's what really matters. Exactly a year ago, the XRPL had just 45 million in tokenized assets. Now it's over 2 billion. That's not growth. That's an explosion. We're talking over 2,200% increase in 2025 alone. And the institutional pipeline? Archax has committed to bring $1 billion on chain by mid 2026. Standard custody holds 338 million. Vert Capital has nearly 270 million in private credit. Ondo Finance brought their tokenized treasuries to XRPL. Open Eden has over 60 million in T-bills. These aren't retail players. These are institutional infrastructure providers building serious tokenization businesses on XRPL. Oh, and the EVM sidechain they launched hit 120 million TVL within a week. So now you've got Ethereum compatible smart contracts running with XRPL's speed and low costs. The infrastructure is there. The institutions are coming. Okay, now this is the one that really matters for traditional finance. On January 27, 2026, the European Central Bank made an announcement that fundamentally changes how European banks will operate. Let me explain why this is bigger than most people realize. All right, final topic, and honestly, this might be the most important one. So the ECB, the European Central Bank, just announced that starting March 30th, 2026, blockchain-based securities can be used as eligible collateral for Eurosystem credit operations. Think about what that actually means. When banks need to borrow from the ECB, they post collateral, usually government bonds, right? Well, now, if those bonds are issued on a distributed ledger through a compliant central securities depository, they count. Same as traditional bonds, same eligibility criteria, same collateral management requirements. And here's the quote that really tells you where this is going. An ECB official said, and I'm paraphrasing here, 5 years ago, it was maybe a bunch of geeks asking for this. Now we hear more and more the industry asking, why don't you bring central bank money into this ecosystem? When they made the December announcement, 64 stakeholders immediately wanted to participate. But it doesn't stop there. The ECB is working on two major infrastructure projects. Pontes, that's the short-term solution, a pilot launching by Q3 2026 that links DLT platforms to target services for settlement and central bank money. And Appia, that's the long-term vision for an integrated European digital asset ecosystem. So who benefits? Euroclear, the main European CSD, has been active in DLT issuances. Clearstream launched their D7 DLT platform, and now any bank issuing tokenized securities through these platforms can use them as ECB collateral. Remember when people said central banks would never touch blockchain? Well, they're not just touching it, they're building the infrastructure for it to become the backbone of European capital markets. So let's connect the dots here. Ripple launches a treasury platform that settles in seconds and gives Fortune 500 CFOs access to overnight repo markets. XRPL crosses 2 billion in tokenized assets, with institutions lined up to add billions more. And the ECB, the European Central Bank, says blockchain securities are now acceptable as central bank collateral. This isn't speculation anymore. This is infrastructure being built in real time. The question isn't whether traditional finance will adopt blockchain. It's how fast they can move before they get left behind. If you found this breakdown valuable, smash that subscribe button. Drop a comment below. What do you think is the most significant development here? The Ripple Treasury launch, the XRPL milestone, or the ECB decision? I read every comment. See you in the next one. Subscribe for weekly institutional grade crypto analysis. Comment, which development do you think will have the biggest impact? Ripple Treasury, XRPL's $2 billion milestone, or the ECB's blockchain collateral approval?